All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about the childhood of a truly remarkable leader, A.P.J. Abdul Kalam. Now, you might know him as the people's president or the missile man of India, but long before all that, he was just a kid in a small town. And it's there, in those simple beginnings, that the man he would become was really born.
So, this quote from Kalam himself, man, it just says it all, doesn't it? His childhood wasn't about being rich or having fancy things. Not at all. It was built on something much, much more solid, a feeling of being secure. All the real necessities, food, medicine, love, they were all there. And that idea, that simplicity, is pretty much the foundation for his entire life story.
So to really get who he was, we have to go back to where he came from. We're heading to Mosque Street in the little island town of Rameswaram. We're going to his home, which, wasn't fancy on the outside. But inside, it was absolutely overflowing with the stuff that really matters: wisdom, faith, and just incredible generosity.
Kalam always used this one word to describe his childhood: secure. And that word is so, so important. It's easy to think secure means having a lot of money, right? But for him, that wasn't it at all. It was about something deeper, an emotional stability. It was the feeling of knowing you were cared for, knowing you were loved, and that feeling, well, that's what gives you the confidence to do just about anything later in life.
So let's break down what made this home so special. First, you've got his dad, Jainulavdeen. He didn't have a lot of formal schooling, but he had this deep, natural wisdom. That's where Kalam got his honesty and that amazing self-discipline. Then there's his mom, Ashiyama, who is just a spirit of pure kindness and faith. I mean, get this, they literally fed more strangers than their own family members every single day. Who does that? And his bedtime stories? Wow. He was hearing tales from the Hindu epic, the Ramayana, and from the life of the prophet. So right from the very beginning, this idea that different faiths could exist together was just normal. It was woven into the fabric of his life.
Okay, so you have this kid with this amazing foundation of values. What happens next? Well, he gets his first job. And you're not going to believe how it happened. It all started because of World War II, a massive global event that created this tiny personal opportunity for one little boy in a small town.
This is so cool. You can literally see how big historical events ripple down to affect individual lives. The Second World War starts, and all the way in his little town, a couple of strange things happen. First, for some reason, a sudden market for tamarind seeds just appears out of nowhere. Second, the trains stop halting at Rameswaram station, so they just start chucking the newspaper bundles out of the moving train. Now, for an 8-year-old kid like Kalam, this wasn't chaos. It was a chance. He starts collecting and selling the seeds, and then he helps his cousin Samsudin catch those flying newspaper bundles. A little entrepreneur was born.
And what did he get for all this hustle? His first paycheck, so to speak, was one single anna from selling those seeds. In today's money, it's practically nothing. But for him, that little coin was worth so much more.
Because that's the thing, right? That feeling of earning your own money for the very first time, it's a huge deal. It wasn't about the coin, it was about the pride, the dignity of it all. He learned right then and there the value of hard work. And he said, a full half a century later, he could still feel that surge of pride. That's powerful.
Okay, so everything's built on this beautiful harmony and a strong work ethic. But life isn't always that simple, is it? His secure little world was about to get a serious reality check. This next story shows just how fast the poison of social division can try to creep in and test even the strongest friendships.
But before we dive into what happened, just think about this for a second. Put yourself in that position. When someone in charge, a teacher, a boss, a system, tries to put a wall between you and someone you care about because of who they are, what do you do?
And here's the setup. The contrast is just jarring. On one side, you have Kalam's reality. He's a Muslim kid, and his 3 best friends are all from Orthodox Hindu Brahmin families. And to them, it just didn't matter. They were just friends, period. Then the agent of division arrives. A new teacher walks in, takes one look at Kalam and his Muslim cap, and orders him to the back of the classroom, away from his friends. Just like that.
But this is where the story gets really, really good. The reaction wasn't silence, not even close. His friend Ramananda went home in tears and told his dad what happened. And his dad, Lakshmana Sastri, just happened to be the high priest of the Rameswaram temple. And he didn't just console his son. No way. He summoned the teacher, and with Kalam standing right there, just laid into him for spreading the poison of social inequality and communal intolerance. He was not messing around.
And here's the most amazing part. It worked. The teacher didn't just mumble some half-hearted apology to get out of trouble. Faced with that kind of strong moral conviction, he fundamentally changed his views. He actually reformed. It's just an incredible lesson in how direct, courageous action can actually defeat prejudice.
So that was one way to fight prejudice, head on, with a direct challenge. But now we're going to see a totally different approach from another important teacher in his life. This one wasn't about a big, loud confrontation. It was about something much quieter, and maybe, in its own way, even more powerful, leading by personal example.
So let's meet this guy, Siva Subramania Iyer, his science teacher. Now, on the surface, he was an Orthodox Brahmin and his wife was very conservative. But deep down, the man was a rebel. He was determined to break down the social barriers that kept people apart. And the way he did it, it's like a little three-act play. First, he invites young Kalam to his home for a meal. His wife is horrified. The idea of a Muslim boy in her ritually pure kitchen? Absolutely not. She refuses to serve him. That's step one. So step two, the teacher doesn't get angry, he doesn't argue. He just calmly serves Kalam the food with his own hands and then sits down to eat right beside him. He doesn't say a word to his wife, he just sets the example. And then, step three, he invites Kalam back the next week. This time, his wife, having seen her husband's quiet conviction, serves Kalam the meal herself with her own hands from inside her kitchen. A total transformation.
And this moment, it reveals such a profound truth. The first teacher needed that direct rebuke. But this story shows us that sometimes true, deep-seated change doesn't come from yelling or condemnation. It comes from quiet demonstration. By simply living his values, Siva Subramania Iyer transformed his own home from the inside out.
And now we come to the final chapter of his childhood. It's a time when the world itself is changing. World War II is over, India's independence is just around the corner, and Kalam decides it's time for him to leave home and chase a much bigger dream.
You have to imagine the optimism in the air. Mahatma Gandhi had declared that Indians would now build their own India. Kalam was inspired. He felt this pull. He knew that to be a part of this new future, he couldn't stay on the island. So he went to his father and asked for permission to go to the district headquarters to continue his study.
His father's response is one of the most beautiful and moving moments in his entire story. He didn't get sad or try to hold him back. Instead, he comforted Kalam's hesitant mother with these profound words from the poet Khalil Gibran. He was basically telling her and his son that our children aren't our possessions. They are life wanting to continue. We can give them our love, but we can't give them our thoughts. They have to find their own. Just wow.
And that right there is maybe the ultimate lesson in parenting, in mentorship, in anything. His father, a man of simple means, with no formal education, gave his son the greatest gift of all. It wasn't a map, it wasn't a set of instructions. It was the freedom to find his own way, the freedom to take flight.
And that leaves us with this final thought. Kalam's life was shaped and lifted by these incredible people. His parents, his friends' parents, his teachers, each one in their own way helped him build his wings. So as we close this out, just think about your own life. Who were the people who gave you your wings? The ones who didn't just tell you where to go, but gave you the courage and the freedom to find your own sky.